All right, everyone. Happy holidays. Whether you celebrated Christmas, you're celebrating Kwanzaa, or Hanukkah, we hope you are enjoying the holiday season. And, the gifts keep on coming for Unrivaled. Now, Caitlin Clark might have been the gift that they wanted, Brian, but maybe the gift that they needed is what they got. And we're going to talk about that coming up on today's show. Gotta get up. Gotta get up. Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. Welcome to another episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Erica L. Ayala here alongside Brian Fleurantin. And as I alluded to, Brian, it is the holiday season. So, what's been good for you as we round out the end of 2024?
Well, it's been pretty relaxing. I'm technically working, but no one's calling me, which is a blessing and a half. I appreciate when no one calls me. I like being left alone at work. It's very relaxing. So I've enjoyed that a great deal. I also, a few days ago, covered the Season of Giving campaign with Nyara. We talked about it in the newsletter. It was really fantastic. Both events, really amazing, really great turnout, really good dynamic that we saw, which we'll probably get into a little bit later. But everything's pretty chill.
Yes, we absolutely will. This is indeed our Nyara Sabally episode. But as I teased in the beginning, we're going to get some housekeeping out of the way because it relates to the championship New York Liberty. Sabrina signs with Unrivaled. Now, it was our last episode, Brian, where I said with my whole chest in full confidence, ain't no way Sab is doing Unrivaled. And of course, within days of me saying that, she flips the script.
Very, very. I feel like it might have been one of those situations where she was like, oh, she's saying that I'm not doing it. Watch what happens here.
Right.
I kind of appreciate that on a sarcastic level, but I like it for her. I feel like this is her first off-season, like professional playing. Usually she just relaxes, does training in the winter time and early spring. So getting an opportunity to get some real live reps in against pro players, especially now that she's coming off the hand surgery, want to test it out, see how it's feeling before May when the season starts back up. So it's a great little opportunity for her. I like it.
I really like it. And the one and only Doug Feinberg, aka Dougie, as he's known by New York Liberty players, but especially Sandy Brondello. I love it. Hey, Dougie, how you doing? Oh, it's one of my favorite things. Well, he was able to speak with Sabrina Ionescu for the Associated Press. I'll drop the link a little bit later. And of course, you will see it on our newsletter, Women's Basketball Roundup. But confirmed a few things. One thing that we heard is that this is really a historic signing. We don't have any of the numbers disclosed, but we do know that Unrivaled is granting equity to all players. There were conversations on how much that pay would be for Caitlin Clark should she decide to join the league. And it seems like Sabrina Ionescu kind of came in all sneaky-like and got that big-time contract. So congratulations to Sabrina on that. Still would love to know what that looks like, but she did talk to Doug Feinberg about being very excited to be a part of the inaugural season. And she mentioned multiple times in the AP article that she really is excited to be a part of the ownership group. What do you make of that, Brian?
I think it's really fascinating. And I think on the ownership front, like you want athletes to really sort of like invest in what they're doing because when it's player led, players have a better feel for what's going on. They know the ins and outs of what needs to be improved and what needs to be corrected as compared to someone in a different position who may not be actively playing. So that perspective is always helpful. And you get a chance to really build something from the ground up, mold it and shape it in the way that you want it to. So that way for the people that come behind you, it's really solid. And this just popped in my head. I wonder what you think of it too. Back in, I want to say August, Sabrina picked up a new gig as a player rep in the union. And I feel like having this opportunity directly with Unrivaled, you really, when you go back into CBA negotiations this October, you're going to be like, okay, this is what can be done. And I know it can be done because I did it myself. I saw how this worked. I saw how this looked. And why can't you as a league put something similar to that regard? You as a league, what is your sort of like funding like? What is it like? Open up the books essentially. I want you to open
Yes.
everything up. I want to see what you're doing. I want to see what the people above you in the NBA are doing, because you guys are in partnership and conjunction, and I work with them a lot. So I want to see what they're doing, so that way the money gets to us in a way that's more equitable, more split. And for players who are coming in who may not want to do overseas play, may not want to do anything, you can still have enough to sort of like last in between seasons, and you're not feeling as if you have to sort of like run around the world just to have a little bit of stable income, just to sort of go about your business.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea and notion that you bring up, especially because she's not the only player that is either a team rep or is on the executive board, including, of course, Brianna Stewart, who is on the executive committee. Um, and so I think that's going to be interesting. Kelsey Plum has also been very vocal about the um, the CBA. Now, we do know that the WNBPA and the WNBA have already had their inaugural meeting, their first meeting when it comes to contract negotiations. So this is an ongoing process. I have heard from my WNBPA sources, and I've mentioned this before, they want to move as quickly as possible. Now, we're at the time of the year where things get a little bit hectic. Rightfully so. People are taking time off, but also people are gearing up for a new year. And
Mhm.
we've got, the first dates where teams can reach out to unrestricted free agents. We might get into UFAs a little bit because that definitely impacts the New York Liberty, or there are some players, including Stewie, Sloot, who we'll probably talk about on our next deep dive. So I think it's interesting. But another thing, Brian, and I've been saying people wanted to talk about Stewie, but especially talk about Sab. You probably know where I'm going with this. But also in the interview with Doug Feinberg, Sabrina Ionescu confirms that she hurt her hand, her thumb specifically, in the last 90 seconds of game 4, contributing to how she shot in game 5. I'm gonna read this quote just because I've been telling y'all, shooters gonna shoot. But this is what she had to say. At the time, she confirmed she could not grip the ball, Brian, in game 5. Quote, I didn't know the severity of my injury when I did it. I didn't care to know, and I wanted to do whatever I could to play and try to do the best I can for us to win. Thankfully, I was able to do everything besides shooting, which now makes a lot of sense since I couldn't grip the basketball. So there you go, folks. We talked about it with Lucas when Lucas was on the show. I was like, listen, that shot was looking crazy, but you got to shoot. She has to shoot the ball. She has to shoot. And she
Yeah.
did, and her team won. So
One thing about any great athlete is, if you scared, get the hell out the way. And she's
mm,
not scared. Like, I got one hand that works at least. I can pass the ball. I can
that's
move
it.
my feet. I can run around and do everything I need to do, but I'm not going to be out there. Even last year, she messed
Mhm.
up her hip in the Connecticut series,
Yep.
and she played through it, and she didn't complain about it. She didn't fuss
Nope.
about it. When it was over, she told us about it. But in the interim, she's like, I'm not going to use that. She's very, I think the just sort of going a little bit beyond New York in a sense, I feel like a lot of people have this negative perception of her based off whatever things they have about her. And I'm like,
Yep.
fine, do what you got. But she didn't complain. She didn't fuss. Like, she's out there. She's like, yo, if I can play, I can play. Like,
That's it.
she was sick for like a good 2 weeks, and she played at
Yep.
pretty much every game because she's like,
Yep.
yo, I'm here. Like, people want to
That's
come
right.
watch me play. I want to do my best, even if I'm not feeling it 100%. I'm out there. Like, she's tough. Like, she's a tough, tough, tough
Tough
basketball
as
player.
nails.
And I
Yep.
feel like that gets undersold a little bit. And I feel like for her teammates, especially, like, they see the work she's putting in, and that gives you more credibility and more standing, because she's like, okay, I'm gonna do the best I can, even if I'm not doing it. I'm gonna try to support you guys and put you guys in the best positions possible. Like in that game 5, she was hitting Nyara with some beautiful passes, like really
Yes.
getting out on the run, getting out in transition, finding Nyara, and
Yep.
then even though her shot wasn't there, it's like, okay, I still want to be a presence out there. So even if
Exactly.
so that way for Jonquel, you're not having to sort of deal with a swarm of Lynx defenders, because we talked about it. We talked about it during the series where it's like, yo, in the regular season, they had her in a phone booth. This time she had all the room she needed to work with. And Minnesota, even though Sab was hurt, they got to respect that, because, hey, all it takes is one shot, and
That's
then
it.
one hand or not, three threes go in a row, buildings going bananas, and then you are completely in trouble. So
That's it.
mhm.
That's it. And again, like, yeah, 1 of 19, but it did make sense. I guess that's what I'm saying, Aloysius. And hey, Aloysius, good afternoon. Saw your comment. Ronnie, coming from Jackson, Mississippi. All right now. But I think again, this is why I kind of teed us up here, because I think it did make sense. Now, should she have taken 19 shots? I was kind of arguing this with somebody else. If she was open 19 times, then she's got to take it. Because the one time she doesn't, if I'm Cheryl Reef, I'm like, something ain't right. Something ain't right. Sabrina Ionescu passing up an open look, something ain't right. Expose it. Expose it. And so anyway, that's all I got to say about that. But
And
we
I
will
will
see.
say
Oh,
to
go ahead.
one more with that, like Cheryl, hey man, we talk about people from New Jersey. You leave something up with them, they go jam you
Sweep
up.
that leg.
Cheryl will jam you up quick if you out there. Oh no, I don't want to shoot. Cheryl got something for you.
Yep, she got something for you. Sweep the leg. But yeah, anyway, so we will get to see Sabrina Ionescu in Unrivaled. I, as part of Black Rosie Media, plan to head down to Miami for Unrivaled.
Beautiful
So
South Beach,
that's
palm
it.
trees, highs of 87. Sweaters
Let's
need
go.
not join.
Need not pack. They will not be there. Worse than John Stark's 2 for 18, except they won. Okay, so we're good. Like, it's all good. Like, this she won. It's good. We're good. But we get to talk about one of Sab's teammates 2 times over in Nyara Sabally. That is what today's episode of the Gotta Get Up podcast, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, is all about. A reminder that we also have a newsletter, the Women's Basketball Roundup. And yours truly over here, Brian Fleurantin, is spearheading that, has curated an excellent newsletter for us. You know, I come in with the little magic dust at the ends, but Brian, you are going to be leading the charge here for the Women's Basketball Roundup, which means also you get to curate our main story, which most recently was about Nyara Sabally. And you also posted an in-depth article on Nyara, again, from the campaign or the season of giving. So give us a roundup. What has Nyara been up to just specifically for the holiday season, representing the New York Liberty?
Yeah, Nyara's been really busy. She's been really occupied. She did an event at a basketball clinic in Manhattan by the South Street Seaport a couple Saturdays ago. And then last Wednesday, she was at the pediatric wing of the Hospital for Special Surgery, meeting with children who have underwent child athletes who have undergone surgery. She really spent a lot of time with them. And for the first event with the clinic, I really found it to be terrific and fascinating. I talked with her about it, me and Lucas. In fact, she mentioned that that clinic was free. And as a kid in Berlin, the free clinics were all she and her family could go to and afford. So being able to make the game of basketball more accessible for a group of kids from, like, I think it was 6 to 16 in that age range, really making basketball accessible for them in that regard, where they don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to a clinic. It's in their home city, so you don't have to travel far. You just have to take a train or a bus. So making that part accessible, I thought was really valuable, and it meant a lot to her. And she joked that this was her first time coaching young kids because she coached at Sacramento State a few years back. So she's like, "Oh boy, them kids, man! I don't know, man. I'm kind of shook from a little bit now that I think about it." But she had a wonderful time, and at HSS, it was really fascinating because she talked with us after. You know, she's had to undergo surgeries there too. When she had the knee tear in 2022, she underwent her surgery at HSS, and she was telling one of the kids there, "I was here recovering at the same time." So it really, it meant a lot to her, and I really sort of it was present in the first event, but even more so this time, just her really being able to make that one-on-one connection with the people she was speaking to. Like she mentioned that one of the kids was from Prague and she's played in Prague before. So they were talking about the coffee shops they've gone to and things like that. One of the kids was a volleyball player and she was talking, she's a volleyball and softball player. So the child was giving me our game about when the season starts, all that kind of thing. So it was really sweet. And I think, especially being able to form that connection and really do it in such an intimate setting like that matters a lot. And for the kids who were there, it mattered a lot to them too, because hey, here's someone who's been through what you've been through.
Yep.
She's talked about it, like so many setbacks, so many things she's had to fight back from. And I remember after the finals, Lucas was talking about it. She's always optimistic. Like when you catch her, even on days she may not be in it, she's there. Like she's
Yeah.
present. She has that sort of joy and optimism and positivity that just sort of radiates. And how her teammates talk about her, like Jonquel loves her to death. Like Jonquel, I feel like Jonquel will be like, hey, if you mess with Nyara, you mess with me. So
Hey,
you really
you
see,
don't want to do
yeah,
that.
you don't want to do that. And you really sort of see that connection she brings and sort of has with people. And it's really meaningful and it matters a great deal. And those events really sort of like highlighted just her ability to sort of really build bonds with the fan base. Like New York loves her. Like
Yeah.
she's really, the city has really sort of taken her under their collective wing in a sense. And individual events like that really sort of add to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think you hit on so many things there. Unfortunately, injuries have been a part of her journey to the fact where, we at Black Rosie Media, specifically me, had trouble catching up with her at the Olympics because she played in that first game. It was basically the Sabally sisters just dominating.
Mhm,
And then she is out in concussion protocol.
mhm.
She comes back for their quarterfinal game and is fighting through just nagging injuries again. But once again, she and her sister Satu were really critical in that game against Belgium, which was fantastic. Fantastic to watch. Heartbreaking because either side, I mean, their Olympic story was just so Belgium, Emma Mieseman, and Julie Van Loo if you're in the States, Van Loo if we're overseas. um, but I think the heartbreak, and Satu spoke to us. Nyara did not opt to go through media the media circuit, but I think again she got banged up, and so she did not walk through the circuit. But just hearing Nyara and Satu both talk about what it meant to be on that stage, but also that it's fueled them, Brian, to do even more. And we haven't done our deep dive into Leo. I got to speak to Leo after that game against Belgium. So we'll have some of that audio that I'll,
Oh,
for those who weren't in our
okay.
Slack channel at the time, because if we posted up there at the time, but we'll reflect there again. But I think that's really the story. It's a resilience. I went to Elon University, shout out to Elon, but our mascot is the phoenix. And I think that kind of that idea of rising from the ashes, and there's something powerful in knowing that you're coming from turmoil, upheaval, right? And in some ways that seems to be that sometimes the cards that Nyara was dealt from a health perspective. She's always having to get healthy as opposed to work on staying healthy. And so, or injured, I should say. She's going through injuries, but I love what you said about her spirit. Despite all of that, her spirit has been great. I love this message from Ronnie, and we'll get into this as we continue to go on. New Year's wish is for the New York Liberty to take the training wheels off. That's in all caps. Nyara, she has the juice, so the Liberty should turn her loose. And, let's look at how she did in this last season in particular. Again, didn't start healthy. We know from the great Jackie Powell. I think you were in those scrums as well with Jackie and I when we were talking to Nyara, because Jackie had talked to Olaf. And the plan, Ronnie and everyone, was to have Nyara play significant minutes and be that sixth player off the bench. But again, injuries, it just wasn't meant to be. So we see that in May, she's getting 11.6 minutes. That actually dropped in July, but she again was just getting back from the Olympics. But she was only at 3 and then 3.3 points per game in May and July. But then we start seeing she's getting upward of 15 minutes in August and September. We'll talk about the postseason in a minute. but she jumps again in August from 3.3 points per game to 5.4 points per game. And then in September, that's at 7 points per game, a little over 7 points per game. So they're even in season. And I think these are the numbers. I don't know that those numbers really speak to the volume of the impact she had, Brian, but we do see that her numbers, even this year, did show gains.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there was one game in particular. I want to say it was the game they lost in LA against the Sparks. Like she was their best player that night.
Yeah.
Like she and Stewie were really able to sort of like play well, even though the team was kind of flat that night. They kind of almost they made a fake comeback, but Nyara was good throughout that game. So I feel like they were like we saw the pockets there. There was one game in Seattle, I want to say, where she was playing well, but then she got hurt late, and then it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is
Yep.
it's happening again. But there were so many pockets where you could sort of see the growth coming. Like she came, I think we talked about it in May. I think Sandy talked about it as well too. Like she came in a lot better shape this year, and you know she's further away from the ACL tear. And the deeper you get from injury, the more you look like your old self in a lot of regards. So she came in really nimble. Like she played really well. And I want to say the first game against the Fever, she outplayed Aaliyah Boston. Frankly, like she was terrific that game. Like she really outplayed Aaliyah when she was in her early struggles. So you saw the flashes of potential there. And I think for Nyara, I think I might have wrote about it during the season. Like she's a really good finisher at the rim. Like I feel like her ability to sort of roll and draw so much attention when she's heading downhill, or usually up a set,
Yes.
like when she's playing pick and roll with Sabrina, you really sort of see the sort of like finesse and the sort of like agility she has. Like she's a good finisher at the rim, soft touch at the rim too, which I think is underappreciated.
Yes.
So like when she's down there, like she really knows how to score and do it in a good fashion. So you
Yep.
really sort of see what she's doing there. There was we saw some of her ability to sort of like find as far as her passing, like when she do dribble handoffs to players, like you saw it blossoming a little bit. It wasn't fully there, but you can sort of see the foundation gradually being built and built and built. So you see that well on switches. She's able to really stick with guards. Like we'll get to it a little bit later, but she's really able to sort of hang with those crafty two guards and point guards going downhill. She can beat them at the basket. So you see the foundation of a really good player gradually being built over time. And then in the next section, we'll sort of see it really take off in a special way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I flipped those. Excuse me. It was Belgium where she got hurt early in the tournament. And then I think they played France in the quarterfinals. So apologies that I misspoke there. But speaking of the Olympics, that is. And again, I mean, Nyara, I love that you talk about her soft touch, but also her ability to get downhill. And it's very easy to compare her to Satu just because we've heard so much about Satu. And I think that the soft touch, especially below the rim, close to the basket, is a little bit of the difference in their game. I wouldn't say Nyara really has a game, necessarily 5 feet and out. Satu does. And that's where Satu's finesse comes from. She can handle the ball up there. She can shoot the ball out there. That's what Satu's able to do. Nyara, to your point, very comfortable, properly a post player. And I love that. As we see Ronnie saying, as a big, when you can outrun Fee and still make a layup on Fee, you have arrived. Yes, she is great around the rim. And that is what made Germany a dynamic team when they were taking on. I mean, again, you're playing Belgium, you're going against Miseman. Like that's not an easy assignment.
Yeah.
And in that game against Belgium, Nyara Sabally, the only person who outscored her was her sister. Satu had 17 points. And Leonie Fibish, who we'll talk about in our next episode, had 16 points alongside Nyara. She was just very good. Again, no 3-pointers attempted. Also 4 for 5 from the free throw line. I mean, there used to be a time, Brian, And there are still some out there where if you didn't want a center anywhere near the free throw line, you'd be like, you know what, just inbound the ball.
Yeah.
Just inbound the ball. We just keep this thing going.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about Nyara, like she doesn't take threes in the game, but usually beforehand, like she's with assistant coach Brian Langton, like they're practicing with her pick and pop. They're really sort of trying to get her to expand out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think that I think the deeper she goes in her career, the more we'll see the full game blossom.
Yeah.
And I think for the Liberty in particular, I think this is where organizational investment comes in, because you have a coach who can be like, okay, I'm going to lock in with you. Like everyone has their person. I'm locked in with you. I'm going to work with you to really get you comfortable and get you to spots where I think you can go.
Yep.
And I think that, the next step for her is that to sort of do it in game. And I think that, especially I was thinking about that in the context of someone else yesterday, but for a young player, you want them to make mistakes because it shows, okay, you have room. Like you really have a chance to really sort of like figure things out in this big setting. So I think for Nyara, the goal going forward is just like having those moments in game and being able to learn from them and really being able to sort of like read and react to what's going on and then process it and then really take that next step.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. And I also love this, Aloysius. I have a new name for Nyara, Next Level Nyara. And that's kind of what this whole episode is about, because it seems to me, Brian, like I love that you talked about her maybe shooting a little further away from the basket. She can dribble up there. The Liberty is not a team that needs her to do that, but she absolutely can. A la Ronnie's comments here. I mean, that steal, I am obsessed with that photo of her, like arms outstretched, beating Fee to the spot, and then finishing like that. Between that and the Leo 3-pointer, which again we'll talk about on the next episode because I do want to focus on Nyara. But to me, I think, and also KT's grit, we talked about that a little bit on a previous episode. Those three things you can talk about. You can talk about Sabrina's shot in, what was that, game 3. You can talk about her lack of shooting in game 5. You can talk about Stewie's defense. But in game 5, Nyara Sabally is one of the critical players to get the New York Liberty the win. You could argue with your mama. I'm not arguing with nobody on this, Brian. I was there. You were there. We were there. We saw it. We saw it with our own eyes. And Sandy saw it too, because she rolled with Nyara down the stretch.
And it's funny. I was watching, I think we talked about it when the Unlocked video came out, and halftime she's like, Nyara, we're going to go big. You're going to be in there. And she's like, okay, I'm ready. So you really sort of saw the trust that's built in there. And I think for just to sort of circle, just to go a little bit deeper than this for a moment, that like those 3 players, I feel like Jonathan Cope would just like clip that and be like, whenever someone questions him, to be like, I know what I'm talking about. Trust me. I got you covered. So you really saw the vision of what he's been doing. And, for Nyara, in the context of like perseverance, when she was at HSS, she was talking about, she's not glad the injuries happened, but it's sort of like it happened. And she wound up in an organization like New York that really supports her.
Right.
And because I remember at the time, there was some criticism of the team taking her because she wasn't playing that year in 2022. I remember there was folks who were like, why didn't they draft someone who's going to be ready right now to contribute to the team? And then Jonathan and Sandy in the post game of the draft were like, we know Nyara's going to be out. We're going to take our time. There's no rush. Like she's going to heal up, and then you guys will see what she's capable of doing. So I think that for an organization like this, having patience in that regard is so meaningful, because we've seen it in this league so many times where young players are just sort of thrown into the wolves with no support, and then it's, young player's gone, and it's like, what happened here? Like, why did you do that? Where is the foundation that you need to have to be a real serious outfit? And the Liberty, to their eternal credit, have really built that for many years, hybrid rebuild and all. Like they've been able to they've really been able to build out a proper organization in that regard. And it's a situation now where players can come in, even if you're not fully healthy, you're going to be in-house. We're going to take care of you, make sure you have all the things you need. So that way, when you are ready to come back on the court, you're ready to do it at your pace and you're able to
Right.
jump in and do what you can and not feel as if, you have to go out there less than 100% because if I don't, I'm going to be somewhere else.
Lose a
Because,
spot.
yeah.
Chicago, let me stop. No, I think, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Rebecca Gardner, someone else that you featured on the Women's Basketball Roundup, is another example of that. And it is going to bring and raise interesting conversations the deeper we get into the off season, or another way to put it is the closer we get to free agency, being on the other side now of the expansion draft, because I'm very curious to see how the New York Liberty continue to operate, knowing that there are more expansion drafts coming. And I think that they've given time for players like a Nyara to step up, to learn all of the things that you just said, Brian. I think Rebecca Gardner, that championship run and championship season was that for her last year. And so I think also it becomes, when do things pay off? And I think what's just the beginning of things paying off for Nyara. I'm very curious to see how Rebecca Gardner bounces back. But I guess all of that to say, to kind of meld what you're saying and to think about what's coming down the pike, Brian, is you build such a versatile lineup. You have so many players that can do things at an elite level and fit into a system that, I mean, have the New York Liberty kind of future-proofed with a player like Nyara, or maybe Leo, who we will talk about again on the next episode? But let's focus on Nyara. Like, we both agree Nyara was protected. We don't know. We cannot say with 100% certainty, but also she was protected. That was me doing my Kiki impression. She was Rose, like she was she was protected. And I think that we don't know what's going to happen with Stewie in the long term. She said she's signing 1-year contracts. She is technically a UFA. I think she will be coming back, but that's what I think. But if and when you lose Brianna Stewart, if and when you lose Jonquel Jones, how far are we, Brian, from Nyara being able to step into a role like that, where she becomes a part of a new Big 3, Big 4, Big 5 for the New York Liberty?
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question. And I think that this is so fascinating to me on so many levels, because it feels like for much of my life, just generally speaking, like basketball players, when you hit like 35, 36, it's like, okay, you are running towards the finish line. You're going to be out of here in like a year or two.
Right.
Now we see players playing into their 40s. Like DT is going to be around for as long as she wants to. Like Brianna, you ask her, I feel like she could probably play until she's like 47, honestly speaking. Like she's been able to really maintain
Not according to ESPN. Woo! Okay, sorry. I had to. I'm sorry. I took you off your train of thought. You were doing
that was good. Thankfully, I didn't write that, so Marta will not pull up on me if she sees me in person. I do not want that problem at all. No.
Oh man.
Yeah, so for players now, like they can stay as long as humanly possible, or as long as they want to. Like the declines aren't as steep as they may have been, as as health advances, as the game advances, as technology advances, so players can train better, have more access to these needed materials and sort of like devices and supports that they may not have had even as far back as like 5 years ago. You see the growth rapidly expanding in real time. So the opportunities may be there for players to stay longer, but for Nyara in particular, I feel like we're really going to see a lot of her next year. 44 game regular season. You want to be able to sort of like keep your major players healthy throughout. So you don't want to have a situation like in 2023 where Stewie's got to save them every game and play 37 heavy minutes, taking all the shots. And you don't want to have a Go ahead, Erica. I know you got
I'm
something.
sorry, because you said it and then I thought of it. Now, Sandy did better from 23 to 24 on the offensive side with Stewie. But when you just said what you said, the New York Liberty don't win without Stewie's defense. People want to lambaste her because she's at like an elite level. And I get it. You want to be super critical. She's at an elite level. She did not score to what is her average, let alone what she's capable of. I will give you that. But sis played defense.
Mm-hmm.
She did that. And so just a minute, just as you were speaking, I do think that's an area where Nyara, aka that steal on fee that we've already talked about a million times, it feels like, and we'll talk about a million times more. That to me is why I'm excited for her to hopefully be a part of the long-term plans for the New York Liberty. Because you know what they say about defense and championships. She plays the right way. She commits to her growth, as you've already said, with her perimeter shooting. But that defense, you cannot teach certain defensive instincts. You just can't. And she has them.
Yeah, and to your Nyara defense point, there is one play that Lucas loves, and I'll find it and clip it a little bit later. There was one where the Liberty were up 3, and Court is on the wing. She beats Leo backdoor. Nyara's at the top of the key. She sees it. She sprints down to the basket, contests, gets the rebound, and Minnesota doesn't score. Just being able to have that awareness and being able to really hustle down there, because usually Sandy talked about it after game 3. She had Nyara play in a 7-minute burst because she was starting to get a little bit tired. And in game 5, Nyara was just out there. Like it was, hey, empty the tank. Don't worry about tomorrow. Like we're gonna try to get this to the finish line. And for Nyara to really be out there deep in the game, and it was heavy, hard-working minutes to get from the 3-point line, get to the rim, contest a crafty guard at the bucket, get the board, keep things going. Like that is amazing, and that right there is a testament to all the hard work she's done. Like I think Leo might have got the rebound officially, but Nyara made that play. It may not pop on the box sheet, but for the folks who were there, like they saw it. It'll never go away. Yep, we saw it.
I'm telling you, I almost said in heaven, but that's a lie, because I wasn't. That OT was stressful. I was stressed. I was confident. If y'all are in Slack, all I kept posting was the same message. I was like, get this win, get this effing win, get this. Like that's it. Because I wasn't trying to hear nothing else. I wasn't trying to think nothing else. That was it. Like I didn't care how you did it. Some people care. Some people want to like try and clown the Liberty for winning in a certain way, or that the fact that they should have lost. Miss me with all of that. Did you get the win? Okay. You is the banner going up? Okay. And that's how New York played. And that's why I say that is the most New York way to win a championship that I've probably ever seen live. First of all, I've only seen one New York kind of team win a championship, and that's the Metropolitan Riveters in the NWHL. Shout out to Madison Packer and the crew. But I ain't never seen a New York team, well, that I root for, because I've been alive for I guess they exist. But I ain't never seen a New York team that I wanted to win a championship. And it was wild to me how gritty that win was. I also did see the Giants win that Super Bowl. You want to talk about a New York way to win a Super Bowl? That was a gritty grind it. Like, come on. That was insane. And I don't know. I think there is a realness to this. You just got to be built a little different. We talk about it a lot on this podcast. You just got to be built a little bit different to play in New York. And Nyara has it. She has it. I think this whole New York Liberty squad, literally from Jonathan Kolb down, is very unassuming. They walk into a room and you're not really sure what's going on. Okay, you got Sab, you got Stewie, you got JJ, Benijah Laney Hamilton's been putting people on, but everyone else, you're kind of like, okay. Okay. And I was one of them people. I was like, I don't know what we doing. I don't know it. I was like, Leo, no disrespect. I don't know you, sis. I don't know you. She showed me. But I remember Cheryl Swoops. She had a lot of things that people got really excited about this season.
Boy, her 2024 was quite the adventure.
Hello. But one of the things she said, and she I don't think she was wrong at the time, is that can this be a New York Liberty team to get to the WNBA Finals again? And one of the things that she said is like, what improvements did they make? And this, Brian, I felt the same way, because this hadn't been a battle-tested reserve group. They earned some stripes in this 2024 season, Brian.
Mm-hmm. And it really felt like having them really sort of grow in real time. Because like last year, the games would always sort of come down to the wire. This year, they didn't trick off as many big leads as they did last year, to where the starters had to save them. You were really able to see various contributions throughout the year. Like there were a couple games Stewie sat out, and it's like, okay, she's out, we're fine. Like that game they won in Chicago where they stopped Angel's double streak. Kennedy Berg was huge in that game. And then the game prior to the Olympic break against the Sun, Ivana had really good minutes. KT was excellent in that game. Like you really saw the various moments throughout the year against Atlanta back in like June on the second leg of a back-to-back. Marquesha had an amazing second quarter that pushed the lead into the stratosphere in that game. So you were really able in various pockets of the year see various people contribute and everyone really be able to have their hand in victories. And I think for a team like this, you want to have everyone pushing in the same direction. You want to have everyone together. And it felt like that this year. I feel like, maybe because I was close to the team last year, I felt that it was there last year, but it felt like it was multiplied this year. For folks looking for like a comparison piece between the two squads, it felt like this group sort of like built on that and amplified it to a greater degree. Yeah. And I think with the roster versatility, last year, I think we talked about it in the summertime. They were so big heavy last year. Yeah. This year, way more flexible, a lot longer, a lot faster.
Right. And that's exactly what Jonathan told us. Because I flat out asked him. I mean, I tried to be nice about it, but I was like, bruh, folks saying you ain't do nothing in the offseason. So what'd you do? and that's what he said, because there's pressure when you make it to a finals and you lose and you're the New York Liberty and you lose the way the New York Liberty lost and you lose the way the New York Liberty lost at home to a Vegas squad. That's a lot of narratives that New York had to eat, swallow, carry all of it.
Yep.
And they did.
Yeah, it stinks because like whenever you lose like that and people start talking about you and it's like you want to say something back, you can't. But at the end, you can be like, I can't. Like I wanna, I want to say so many mean things to you right now, but I can't. So I just have to be quiet for a year.
Have to be quiet, but that's what makes this team special. I said they're a little unassuming. Also, they move like I feel like we have a whole episode where I talked about how they just be like moving in silence, like stealth mode.
Yeah,
like, hella stealth.
Yeah, thankfully for them, all that narrative talk on social media went to the Midwest. It did not stay in the East Coast this year. Like that went to Indiana, Chicago, Las Vegas, but not here.
So y'all can do what you got to do. And I think you mentioned emptying the tank. And I think that's the growth that we've seen in Nyara, her capability to just play. I like what you said, play more heavy minutes. And again, we saw that in the Olympics. She just got hurt in those heavy minutes, So I think that's always something that you have to have in the back of your mind with Nyara Sabally. And she works very hard. And when she's back. And she's ready to give like everything's on the menu, right? If she's back, everything is on the menu. Everything is available and ready to go. Exactly, Damien. Oh, and hey, Damien. Yes, Nyara Sabally could make an impact in 2025. I would add and beyond, which is what we're talking about, if she stays healthy. And again, what Ronnie is saying, this is what makes Nyara so all caps special. She is built for New York. New York is not for everybody. I see what you did there, Ronnie. I see what you did there. in my Alicia Keys voice, New York ain't for everybody. Come on, let's go. No, but it's real. It's true. And I think people misunderstand New York swag. Like New Yorkers come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. It's just like when we're all humming on the same frequency, that's how you know we're from New York. I don't think people understand that. I don't think people understand. You got your quiet New Yorkers, but you get them excited on that one thing, you can be there for days. For days. Then you got your New Yorkers that are loud about everything. That's probably me. We loud all the time about everything. What you mean you ain't got no hummus for my bagel? I'm mad all the time, like all the time. But then we get to that frequency, and it's like, okay, but this New York team, they had to learn what that really meant for them. And so going off of like narratives and things like that, you're always going to have that. I think what's another superpower of this team is that it's not that they don't care, because they do. I mean, the clapback from Stewie, the clapback from Stewie was loud and on time. Okay. It's not that they don't care, because Stewie was waiting to throw that back in Vegas's face. But it's that they have found ways to more effectively and efficiently hone that and push it out through how they play basketball. They didn't know how to do that last year, Brian, because they won that game 3 at home, had the whole crowd, all the juice, right? Everything. And then it looked like we were back in Vegas for game 4.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no point guard. There was no Stokes. There was no Chelsea Gray. And New York still couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is, again, players like Nyara, we're going to talk about Leo next week, so I don't want to get too deep in there. But Leo, I don't think y'all are ready. We need to like a 2-hour special, because I need to dissect this. Like, we need to go to church. This is an AP course, honors. We're getting a doctorate in Leo Phoebish and how she just changed this New York Liberty squad. So I hope y'all are ready. But Nyara is cut from that same cloth. And I think for me, especially future-proofing, because that's kind of how we got on this whole thing, for me, it's going to be interesting to see what her leadership style is. Now, I don't doubt that she has the qualities, but being a good communicator, being, kind of an intuitive, highly intellectual leader, and executing that when you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, it doesn't always translate.
Yeah.
I don't think that Nyara will have an issue. I just think that if she finds a way to really bring out her leadership style, that's just going to accelerate her game, and by extension, the New York Liberty even more.
Yeah, I think with that, this is where the offseason play is going to be so meaningful for her, because she's going to Fenner in a couple weeks.
Right. Yep.
And Fenner is the gold standard for overseas basketball. Like, so many icons have played there before. So this is her first run with them. So being able to be on such a glamour team like that, we'll see what their roster looks like, but it's a great opportunity for her to sort of try some new things out. Can you be the person that's more front facing there as compared to with the Liberty? So I think that's going to be a good opportunity for her to sort of try that out a little bit, sort of try that hat on, see how it fits you. And then when she comes back, she can implement what she does there into the season. And I will say, I was thinking about it earlier when you were talking about Nyara. Germany has the World Cup in 2026. And she was telling us about it. Like, basketball there has started to make inroads. Her, Leo, Satu, on the men's side, the Wagner brothers, Dennis Schroeder, guys like that. They've really been able to push German basketball into having a little bit more presence, because there, she was telling us, it's just soccer. But the fact that basketball is starting to make some inroads there, that matters a lot. And being someone who's helping bring not bring the game, because basketball's there, but like really making it popular and meaningful in that way in your home country is so valuable, and it's such a valuable thing for like a young player to sort of be the representative of your country in a global game
Agreed.
like that. That's going to be a fascinating thing to watch for her, just on a personal level too.
Yeah, absolutely. This has got to get up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. And we do have some audio from Leo with regard to a little bit of that. But I will say that, especially if you're in our Slack channel, and I'll find a way to maybe curate this as a bonus video. I do have a lot of audio from Satu, including her being a very emotional after that loss in the quarterfinals, talking about just that. And I think it's important um, within the context of everything that you just said. Germany, Belgium, France. I'm so keen to see how those teams do on the world stage in the next handful of years. They have the right core, and again, when we do the Leo episode, you'll hear some of this. But they have a core that's played together. In the case of Germany, they've grown up playing together, through the pipeline, and it's an exciting time, and now adding a WNBA championship to that when you are one Nyara Sabally and Leonie Fibish, it helps put things into perspective. I think also, and we didn't get into this as explicitly when we talked about and we did our deep dive on Sabrina, but my take is that in very different ways, but that group, I'm going to say Nyara, Leo, and Sab, they had all of the ingredients, but never found the right recipe to win a championship, a gold medal at the high level, or, to advance. And doing that in New York, I'm so curious to see how that fuels them. We saw how a loss fueled them, Brian, but how will a win fuel them? Because not everyone takes winning well. Not everyone takes losing well, but not everyone takes winning well.
Yeah, it's the old Pat Riley disease of me that championship teams always have to be mindful of. Like, oh, everyone's in the commercials, everyone's got these new cars and new jackets and all these kind of things.
Yep.
So for this team, it's how do you sort of maintain that hunger, and do you again push for that one seed? Because if you have home court in your building, we've seen your building is monumental and amazing.
Massive.
So you want to have as many home games there as possible. So it's going to be a fascinating push and pull to see how Sandy manages, okay, how do I manage minutes while still trying to bank in as many wins as possible? Because you can win on the road, but do you want to win on the road all the time? I wouldn't. I want to be in my house if I can help it. Like I don't want to go to a game 7 in a Seattle, for example. I don't want to have to go to a game 7 in a Las Vegas. I don't want to put myself in a hard position, even though I can win. Why do that when I can do the preparing ahead of time, so that way my group has the one seed locked in, has that home court advantage, can really manage things in that way. So that's going to be the fascinating pull. And I think within that, it comes with managing the big stars minutes, getting the bench more acclimated even more, because Leo, we'll get to it next week, but we saw the trust there. Nyara, we saw the trust there in the biggest moment alive. And we saw that trust in the bench pay off. So for the regular season, can you carry that out over 44 games? And then, every so often giving your starters a day off. Be like, okay, we've had 4 games this week. You sit down, like you're fine, but I'm going to sit you into it just so you can sort of heal up a little bit. That way, some deep bench players can get some run. My seventh man off the bench can step up a little bit, take things on a little bit more. So being able to manage all of that is going to be really interesting. And this is where we talked about it so many times, but this is where having extra roster spots will save the league in such a great deal.
Oh
like
my gosh,
Kathy is all about growth, but you're not growing the rosters to offset growth in games, travel. Like they're going to Toronto next year. They're probably going elsewhere. Like I think in August, there's going to be an international game, so more travel in that regard.
They're playing in Edmonton.
Yeah, so it's like you want to have more players there, so that way you spread the
Yeah.
the workload more
Yeah.
evenly. Because
Absolutely.
if you do
And
that, then
yeah, and players are already starting to talk about it. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to head into our fourth quarter, start wrapping up here. I already saw some comments I want to address. Now I can't say I read this article. That being said, I know, Brian, that you were there when Nyara made some of these comments. She's made them before. I've talked to Satu about this. Of course, Nyara wants to play with her sister. I mean, I'm gonna be real. I've got two sisters. Neither one of them played any sports, almost any sports, period, but definitely not the sports that I played. They probably wouldn't want to play with me. I'm just gonna keep it there. But there are siblings that like and enjoy playing with each other. And the Sabally sisters are that. So when she's asked this question, her answer is, of course, I want to play with my sister. I didn't get to do that at Oregon. She wasn't healthy. They got to do that at the Olympics. She wasn't completely healthy. Would she love to see Satu in New York? Of course she would. She talked about, and Brian, you were there again for this. She talked about, and she said this before. It's almost, she's got her sound bites. Her mom would love that. And Satu was actually born in New York, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a little bit of that familiarity from a familial perspective. That being said, the overwhelming message, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, that Nyara ends with is by saying, it's Satu's decision to make. I trust that she'll make the right decision. And either way, that's my sister. I'm holding her down.
yeah, and I guess also within that, it's how much of it is I'm so eager to play with my sister in New York versus for Satu, how eager am I to get the heck away from what the Dallas Wings are cooking these days? Like, if I send me to the moon if they have a good roster up there, like I'll go. Like I got a helmet, I can make it work.
You don't think Kurt Miller's gonna fix it?
I'm Kurt. Like I like Kurt. Like I read about his new coaching hire, and he seems like he passes a lot of check marks. That has done a good job with him over the years. But I'm like, that roster. We'll probably get to it in the spring, but it feels like so many people are trying to cook up a page, go back to UConn thing, which we're going to need to talk about in great detail soon enough. Like that's
Sabrina Merchant kind of
so many
that horn again.
Like just briefly on that, if I have a chance to not go to class anymore, why would I want to keep going back when I can go get a real job making like good money for real? Like what?
I mean, that is true, and she's already making good money. So,
it's true.
And if you can make good money and not do anything and also not have to go to Dallas, is it worth it? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, less is more is what they say. That's how, you know what? I'm gonna stop there. But if you know, I'm not gonna say nothing else. Some folks can roll like that. I've never been one of them.
What, like, as after this wraps up, I'm gonna look up Dallas rent prices. I'm gonna wonder, like, what how much are they charging a month for apartments there?
I mean,
And is it worth staying in Storrs, Connecticut a little bit longer with free room and board versus paying exorbitant rent prices somewhere you may not want to go? Questions are plenty.
Like her WNBA salary might not pay her rent, but somebody else is going to. I mean, Angel Reese already told us. I mean, I don't know if Dallas is at Chicago prices yet, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, also Angel Reese, like, because I could probably find an affordable apartment on a WNBA salary in Chicago. But I live in Tulsa, so I could find something anywhere. So, but anyway, I sure I don't see it, but sure I don't see Satu going to Indy. I really don't. I don't. We've talked about this. We've talked about this on the pod before, Ronnie and Damian. Now, again, I do not think that anything that Nyara said is priming us for this. Like, let's be clear. I think she gave a very honest and diplomatic answer. Do I want to play with my sister? Of course I want to play with my sister. Am I going to play with my sister? Satu's going to do what Satu's got to do, and I trust her. That's it. That's what she said.
And also, one last thing. Brian, the Liberty PR guy, was sitting to my right, and she and he were making sure that they did not hit any tampering bridges.
That
no,
part.
We are
Also
not going to
that part.
tamper. Kathy, you're not taking any more money from this organization. Enjoy your vacation.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would love to see it, but we talked about it. What would that look like as we know the roster to be now? Somebody coming off the bench.
Mhm.
Who is it? As Michael once sang to us. Who's coming off the bench? That's a lot of money coming.
Yeah.
Either way, it's a lot of money coming off the bench.
It's almost like a remix of last year with NECA, where it's like, who coming off the bench? Who's taking less minutes? Because it ain't gonna be Brandon Stewart. It ain't gonna be Sabrina Ionescu. And damn sure ain't gonna be the Finals MVP. I'll tell you that.
So there you go. So you got to think about that. Maybe down the road. I don't see it happening. Well, again, is Nyara the future of the New York Liberty? I think she has a great chance of being the future. Now, somebody else got to move from that group that you're just talking about. And I think it will happen. I think it's going to happen sooner than New York Liberty fans probably want to think. Whether it's through retirement, trade, expansion, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You know, this ain't the NHL where the salary cap keep creeping up every year. That don't happen in the WNBA. I think no, I'm not gonna be messy. It doesn't happen often. It is very hard, but I think it's an interesting exercise. The same can be said for when we were thinking about Gabby Williams, because if Gabby Williams and Maureen Johannes are on a team with Leo, I'm gonna lose my mind. And so, I'm not ready for it. I want it, but I don't, because I will be a mess. That will be the swaggiest that New York has ever been since Teaspoon held it down by herself with a little dash of Becky Hammond. What?
This is where we need like raise the cap, put more roster spots so we can make this a reality, because it's too cool to not happen. Like now that you put it in my head, I need a team somewhere to put all of them together, so we just like roll the ball out, let them work their magic, and we all have a good time.
I'm telling you. So I'm gonna go to high post hoops real quick, because I see that there seems to be a little bit of confusion on Satu's contract. Or I said high post hoops. Wow, that's a throwback.
We take it all the way back.
I was a writer there. That's a real throwback. Her hoop stats. That's what I meant. We're gonna go to her hoops and the salary, because I just recently saw an article which I thought was accurate, that Satu, I'm pretty sure, has said that she's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, there's been so much like confusion about that, because some places have her as a restricted free agent, others have her as unrestricted.
I'm so confusion. Because she said herself, because she had that IG post, I think it was, right, where she talked about how she's looking for new sponsorships. Because I guess her Jordan contract is coming up, and then she talked about the WNBA also. So let me go to her hoop stats, and I'll pull it up on the screen. They have her as a UFA. Now, none of us, myself certainly, when it's me, none of us are beyond making a mistake, but her hoop stats is usually pretty accurate. And we can see here that they have her as a UFA. And I will tell you what, if you don't want to believe her hoop stats, Satu is pretty confident that she's a UFA. So I'm gonna probably go with what Satu says on that one.
Yeah, and also Satu has a job in the PA, so they know she's unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, she be knowing. It says she's a UFA, so I don't know.
Also, quick diversion. The name above Satu there, we know she's not going back to Dallas. She told us that.
Thank yous. Yeah, she was like, goodbye, good night.
I wish you well.
Set in Dallas for me. Yeah, Natasha Howard is gone. But we're gonna have to talk about this. I don't think it's gonna come up so much on our next episode for Leo, but we also have to do a deep dive on Courtney Vandersloot, which I think I honestly can't wait, because as I sit here today in Black Rosie Media headquarters, Brian, I don't know what to make of Courtney Vandersloot, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way at all. I think that Courtney Vandersloot's game has gotten a lot of nicks in the last year and a half, and I understand it to an extent. I just think that there's a lot of dynamics when it comes to Courtney Vandersloot, and a la Kelsey Mitchell. They're in different phases of their WNBA career. Obviously, Courtney Vandersloot coming off another title, but I reference Kelsey Mitchell because, like Kelsey Mitchell, when Sloot knows, we'll know. And I think that's, honestly, I'm trying to get comfortable with that, but I'm not, because I think what Courtney Vandersloot does has a massive impact on the immediate, intermediate, and future of the New York Liberty.
Yeah, I think, just as a quick teaser for the Sloot episode, it's a lot of understanding like human dynamics in a lot of regards. Like, it's a lot of like, it's managing work, so many different personal interdynamic things coming into play in one person in Courtney.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in a great deal, because it's a lot there. And I don't mean that in like a kind of snarky way. It's just it's a lot in a human way.
Like, there's a lot of life stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that conversation, because I like to think that most of our conversations are pretty nuanced. I think we get these jokes off. I definitely bring all the sass, because I keep receipts, and some of y'all be trying to play my face, and I don't appreciate it. and I'm gonna let y'all know, when I told y'all that Stewie needed rest last year and y'all didn't want to listen, and look what happened. But that's all right. Sandy was listening. That's all that matters. I told you something was wrong with Sab. Y'all don't want to hear it. Then she went and had thumb surgery. I be knowing. Auntie be knowing. Anyway, like Rob says here, just to go back to the other conversation, it's not necessarily a both are true. She has not been cored yet. Are they going to core her? I mean, would you let Satu walk out for nothing? Probably not. But she has not been cored as of yet. So I'm not saying she's cored, because she ain't. She's a UFA. So.
Yeah, it's not a situation like last year at exit interviews. The first sentence out of Jonathan Cope's mouth is, "Hey, don't worry about it. We're gonna core her.
We're coring Stewie, so
we'll get to everything else later. For that part, you can write that down right now."
Right, exactly. So has not happened yet. Will it? Is it likely to happen? Sure, but she is a UFA. So there we go. Thank you, Rob, for offering that comment, because there you go. But I want to make sure we definitely approach Sloot with care. And then that will also set us up, though, to talk about the situation of UFAs for the New York Liberty. Again, Stewie is a UFA. She's an unrestricted free agent. She's given indication that she is likely coming back to New York, but she also has said she's signing year to year. And I think that's smart, especially when there's a CBA negotiation in the works. Stewie ain't no fool.
Yep.
Do not pull a Sylvia Fowles. Nobody pull a Sylvia Fowles and sign before the CBA is inked. That will always hurt my heart. Anyway, if you don't know, we'll talk about it in another episode. But I think we also have to talk about players that the Liberty technically have rights to, or, and what's going to happen. Johannes, I know a lot of y'all's favorite. Han is on that list. Y'all.
I am not. Don't include Erica's like, don't include me at all.
Headquarters. That is not coming from headquarters. That's on y'all. But again, I want to have that conversation, Brian, after Courtney Vandersloot, because for me, Courtney Vandersloot is critical. What she does this coming season is critical for how the New York Liberty move, especially given all that you said on today's podcast, that Jonathan Kolb likes to play the long game. And that's going to be a very critical domino that he needs to know which way it's falling, so that he can build out that future. But we're gonna wrap up today's episode. Please reunite the Splash Sisters. We're gonna also have an opportunity to hear from some of these players through Unrivaled. And at the top of the year, they will be doing some Zoom media availability. Also, Black Rosie Media, by way of me, is planning to be at Unrivaled a handful of times this season. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Unrivaled, but especially excited to talk to some of these players as we start seeing these key dates for conversations, for the contracts when we get to February. All of that's going to be happening through the Unrivaled season. So chaotic, quote unquote, off season. Give it to me. Absolutely. And we don't even talk about the NCAA, but there has been a lot going on in the NCAA. But if you want to know more about that, that's why you got to stay tapped in with the Women's Basketball Roundup. Brian Fleurantin is our lead writer on that, curating that. We will always do the NCAA rankings. And probably at the top of the year, we might move that to a Tuesday release. But we'll get into that. We'll let you know in the newsletter. And of course, we'll do some features. We'll have some interviews with players that are currently with the New York Liberty once we get down to Unrivaled. And also tap in for Tempestade Talk. Tempestade is the Portuguese word for storm. So it is a Seattle Storm podcast hosted by me and Roberta Rodriguez. We will be talking about the Seattle Storm, and there's a lot going on. Our next deep dive over there is coming up on January 1st, actually. We should have more on that. And we're going to talk about Nneka Ogwumike. And there's a lot of spice on Unrivaled. I think a lot of people are going to be keeping eyes on Jewel Lloyd and Skylar Diggins-Smith.
I was about to say, all the chaos talked out there. Let's put the camera in front of Skylar. Just ask her any question that comes to mind. She may want to kick us out, but I'm gonna get that question in first before we get rid of us.
So fascinating on so many levels. I love it. But we did a deep dive on Skylar Diggins-Smith on the last episode. We're gonna do a deep dive on Nneka Ogwumike. That's over at Tempestade. But as Aloysius said, it is time to do the wave, the Ellie wave of the most recent State Farm star. Peace out, everybody. And we will see you on the next episode, if not of Gotta Get Up, of Tempestade Talk. All right, Brian, go on. Wave, wave, wave.